Will now be recorded.
Banking and all of stuff like that could really be relevant. But having it all in one place where it's just a Dropbox, you have no idea how much time it saves you, how much money it saves you on legal fees.
Yep, absolutely. I'd also say, kind of unreliable. People might think that software, is unreliable. And there's kind of, some people think that, it's got to be, hosted in your office on your own server. And that's a very antiquated model. Some people think that, only the cloud is the way to go. I venture to be more in that camp. But, at the end of the day, like, this day and age, I would say, as long as you've got, kind of a solid development team behind, that software, and it's not just kind of a, some one-off guy who's kind of created this on the side. It's a full company. Most modern technology does have a lot of, kind of mechanisms in place to make sure that, it is reliable. And even if, there are server issues or technology or database issues, like it's almost always kind of, there's backups, there's ways that it can be accessed, and at the end of the day too, like you want to make sure that, that whatever software, provider you're choosing, they're providing that tech support as well. And so anytime there are issues, having access to people who, are directly on staff, who are very knowledgeable, who have direct access to the development team, can make sure that, anytime issues do come up, that gets, promptly reported, it gets addressed, if it's something that needs to be fixed. Again, the advantage of the cloud hosted software is that, when bugs do come out, they can be immediately fixed and pushed out, and everyone benefits from that, versus if you have software that has to be downloaded, whether it's on your phone or on a Mac or, PC, or kind of, the antiquated model where, you're putting a CD-ROM drive in there. And those, if it can't be updated, then obviously it might have some challenges. But, in today's, modern age, I would say that, we're definitely seeing, software has become extremely reliable. We look at kind of monitoring uptimes, the 99.999, percent of the time. And so, obviously there's glitches and issues that do occur, just at times, and nothing's perfect. But, I'd say for all intents and purposes, I would certainly describe most software today as very reliable, assuming that the company and the support there is along with it.
No, it's everybody's worst fear. They're moving to the cloud. What happens if it goes down and I lose all my data? Are you backing it up somewhere?
Yeah, there's always backups of everything. I can assure you that. So another thing, and probably I'd say the last major thing that that I hear, and kind of when you start talking to people, that there is this natural kind of resistance to change. There's this kind of tendency that people they might have this kind of mindset that they're not technology people, or they're adverse to it, or they can't learn it, or they can't do it. And I think kind of my approach and what I did when I first built out the first version of this is I got everyone together. I said, hey guys, like let me understand, what are the challenges that you're having today? What are the bottlenecks? Like, what are you spending time on that you wish you weren't having to spend time on? And I started to involve them in the process and started learning like what their needs were, and kind of understanding how I could directly benefit them. And by getting them involved in the forefront to help make them part of the process, it also helped with them kind of taking ownership and getting excited about making this decision to implement it. And so I think that just to the extent that you can involve your team, nobody wants to show up one day and have their boss say, hey, now you have to use this thing, or you have to do something this way, and it's a total surprise. They'd rather be, hey, we decided to move forward with that, with some software that you said you're having these challenges, and we think it can address it. And like just involving them, I think, is a really great way to kind of overcome that that hurdle, and just really understanding too what are their pain points that it's going to directly solve. Having those upfront conversations will be really, really helpful, to get their buy-in so that they're willing to use it and kind of implement it.
And as well as your internal team, your external team as well, having access to, like open invoice reports, so I can tell, I can just log in, or you can send me a report and I can see, okay, well, on these files, we need to move to the next step on collections. It really helps, and even with your accounting team and everything, it's all in one place.
Yeah.
And then it can be easily accessed. Either you can share access or send reports. It makes everything easier for all parties involved. Communication between external sources is a huge part of the team's success, your team's success, and making that communication easier is always super important. And I think that the technology allows that to happen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, kind of just talking about what the what the advantages of the technology and how it can benefit. I mean, if I had to boil it down, these are kind of my three off the cuff. I think it's going to help you become more organized, more efficient, and going to help you grow your business. So I think we can dive into each one of those a little bit. From an organization standpoint, again, just being able to centralize everything. When I first took over this GC, I mean, we had papers, we had binders and folders, we had spreadsheets, we had, different spreadsheets, we had, QuickBooks, like just everything was all over the place. And so it was very hard to, really get organized. And whenever I needed to look something up, I had to like go, look in so many different places. I mean, like with the photos and videos and files related to jobs and documents, like, I mean, those things, were all over the map. They were in text messages, they were in emails, they were on this person's phone, they were up on this Dropbox or that Google Drive. Like being able to have one centralized location for all of your information, it's huge, and it's just going to help you to archive that information too. And so whenever you need to look up those records, like Karalynn was saying about having everything that you might need in one place for discovery, just doing that in like the process of running the job, as you're doing it, keeping that all together is like just super beneficial. And then again, digitally collecting everything, like, there's no reason to kind of save paper files and things, as or maybe there are, but like in my realm, I'm all about, let's either take a photo of it, let's scan it, let's upload it and save it and have it in one place. The whole like e-signatures, for example, with JobTread, you can send out your proposals, your change orders, or even your work orders to your subs. Getting people to sign off on those contracts and making it easy creates that digital record. And so then you've automatically got it. It's already, saved and recorded, instead of having, again, the paper process where you're having to drive out and collect a signature and then come back and then scan it or upload it, or if you email a proposal to a customer, they're having to download it, sign it, figure out how to scan it, re-upload it. Like, being able to do that kind of and having that in one format, one place, is super beneficial. And then, also just having that go-to platform to manage all of your internal team, your employees, your jobs, everything with your customers, and having, kind of one place where they can go to do that self-service, where they can see the schedules, they can, see all the outstanding invoices and the contracts they need to sign, and all that is, it's all organized. You make it easy for them to interact, and, that customer experience with your business is really, really helpful by having it all together. Same thing with your subs, your suppliers, like giving them that portal where they can check, what work orders do they have, they can complete their tasks, they can, kind of do all of that is just so important. And it takes kind of getting organized. That I think that's probably one of the biggest things that, implementing new, technology can really benefit, a company, is that it does force you to stop and kind of think about, what are all my processes, what's working, what's not working, how can I streamline it, how can I bring it into one place. And I've seen a tremendous impact on a business, and even a business owner, and just your mind, having it all organized so that you've got a dependable, place to go every single time to look up information, to send out information. It'll make a huge impact. From an efficiency standpoint, again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but, being able to save time, without having to kind of manually re-enter, information all over. Like when I first stepped into that GC, like I literally found, piece of paper was submitted from someone in the field. It was put into this folder, and then it got, transitioned over to this project manager, and then someone typed it into a Google sheet, and then it got copied to another Google sheet, and then ultimately, someone in accounting came in and re-entered it into QuickBooks. Like, that was so much time was wasted right there, when we could have all just like input it one time, had access to the information, do whatever needs to happen, then have it automatically sync into your QuickBooks or your accounting system. Like, there are ways to be much more efficient by leveraging technology. And, it's also going to reduce your errors. I mean, so many opportunities to, kind of, have typos and accidentally, fat finger things. Like, this is a way to just have it go in one time, make sure it's correct, and it's going to flow throughout, versus kind of having a bunch of those different entry points. And I would say too, from being able to access it anywhere, whether, you're in the office, you're on the go, you're on the fields, with the customer, like whatever it may be, information should be at your fingertips so that you can very quickly get access to it and look things up, on the go, or, back at your computer. And then also, just again, having that oversight over all your jobs, to make sure, they're on track. I mean, are they, are we hitting our, target schedule? Is our budget, going accordingly as planned, or are we running over on budget? Are we falling behind on schedule? Like being able to monitor that across all your jobs is going to help you as a business owner, as a business leader, figure out where to go focus your time to go, address the issues instead of having to be out on every single job site and, reviewing everything. If jobs are on budget and on schedule, you probably don't need to focus on those. You got your project managers, you got your field guys, your crew is, they're doing a good job. Like, but it's the jobs where you need to focus your time, having that readily available so that you can immediately dive in. I think is a huge, kind of efficiency point there. And then from a business growth standpoint, I mean, being able to set your target, profit margins on a job and then track that throughout the job is going to help you ensure that you're hitting your profit goals. When I stepped into that GC, I mean, like my first advice was they might as well just go to Vegas and roll the dice, because it was a total crapshoot how they were going to perform on a job. We might not know for 30, 45 days after the job was already run how we performed on it. We had already sent all the invoices to the customer. We had paid all the bills. And then we're sitting there scratching our heads wondering where the profit went. Well, instead, a much better way is to kind of do it along the way and essentially have those target profit margins and those goals set when you first sell the job, and then track that. And so you can, again, address any issues in real time. You can course correct, and that's going to help you achieve your target profit margins. By implementing the system, I increased that GC's company's gross profit by 43%. We were able to consistently hit our target profit margins. And so until you've got a well-oiled machine, there's really no reason to scale it. If you're not going to earn, what you're worth and the value, then, what's the point in doing the work in the first place? So like once you can really refine that and have a very streamlined process, and you can achieve your target profit margins, then you can start to focus on scaling and taking on more concurrent projects. Like when I first walked into the GC, we were maybe running anywhere from 10, 15, maybe 20 concurrent projects at once. And by the time we implemented this system, I walked out, we could handle 70 to 80 concurrent projects, and we didn't add any additional project managers. And it just really helped us to, kind of be able to grow the top line revenue without sacrificing the quality, without, taking that risk of losing money on a job. This is how you can really grow the business. And then having that insight, that visibility to where we're making money, where we're losing money, allowed us to refine, and course correct so that we never made the same mistake twice. This is something that, I see a lot of businesses where, one simple, mistake can actually be a substantial, loss, and at the end of the day, like, you just can't afford to have that. You got to make sure that you're always kind of, reviewing your performance and understanding how that you can keep doing better and growing. I mean, one example I like to share, when we did work for, it was a large, commercial company. We did a lot of their jobs. And so whenever we sold a fence job in, Houston for a particular facility manager, we consistently lost 10 to 12%. And this went on for like 6 months. And nobody had ever thought to, like, kind of try to go and review our performance and figure out what happened. At first I was, very skeptical about what was going on and wonder if there's any funny business, but it turned out that we had just not updated our price of steel. The price of the materials, we're using antiquated pricing, and we literally paid to put up their fences. It's crazy, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's to have that type of information in real time is essential to running a business. And so, like, as a business owner, which, you are and I am, your job is to resolve issues.
Yep.
And make the company profitable. And if you don't have good data, you can't do that, right? You don't even know where to start. And I just went
Exactly.
through the same thing of changing my books over, getting an external CFO, and there were so many things I was missing because I didn't have real-time information. I was looking at it 30, 60 days afterwards, and I'm so far behind. There's nothing I can do to change it to become
Yep.
better. So, so there's that real time allow you to make adjustment to see, where am I losing money? Or how can I make more money? It's just priceless.
Right.
And, clears up the chance of miscommunication or errors. Like you said, you enter it in one time, it's there, it'll transfer. It's not. And the other thing too, is that if you have multiple people touching it, and they have to do it to go to the next step, how many invoices are you missing because somebody didn't put it in the right place? How much money did you lose because, somebody forgot to move it from that folder to this folder and it never got done? I've just seen it in real time happen. It just gets lost, and then you don't even know that you're missing it, because once you get to especially a size of like 5 million or something, you're counting on these processes to happen. And if
Yep.
you have something that's not, you don't even know that you're missing it. Where when it's all on the same platform, you can. Another thing too is like if there's an issue on a project or something, and you can have the conversation, and then you can send the change order to resolve it, so that we have the communication of, okay, there was an issue, here's how we resolved it, you approved it, you agreed to it, and then there is no miscommunication anymore. It's right, here's the great records. It's not he said, she said. It's priceless.
Absolutely. So other ways it can help, I think kind of at least, with JobTread in specific, kind of really I sort of boil it down into kind of, you got the pre-construction, sort of the pre-sales, the sales, processes, just again, tracking all of your customers, all of your leads, like understanding the lead sources. Like, was it, from an ad that you ran? Was it from a referral? Did they come from your website? Understanding, and in order to do that, you have to be able to track, where these leads are coming from, and that's going to help you understand what's the most effective. Same thing for your vendors. I mean, I like to share the story about, again, right after I took over that GC, we got audited by our insurance company, and they said, hey, we need to see all of your subcontractors certificate of insurances, for anyone that was on any job in the last 12 months. And we're just like, wait, and again, I sort of stepped into this situation, but we had collected it when they started, never asked for an update. We just weren't tracking when their renewal was. And long story short, they ended up fining us $35,000 for the increased, risk, that we took on those jobs, even though like there was literally no injury, no theft, no death, no issues. But again, insurance companies, so tracking that. So now with JobTread, like we track like literally when was their start date? Do we have their W-9? Do we have their COI? When does it expire? If you need to track their license, like any of that information, like you have to have that, kind of that place to keep it all organized. From a sales perspective, again, making sure that you're building out your job budgets and you're accurately pricing your jobs. Like you can't price a job unless you know what it's going to cost you. And so our approach was, again, build your budget first, have a detailed, list of all the labor, all the materials, anything else that's going to go into it. And once you figure out your cost, then whatever your target profit margin is, maybe it's 30, 40, 50%. That's just an automatic way to calculate it. And so having that, I'm a big fan also of sending out requests for bids, kind of if you got a lumber package or something that we got material pricing all over the place these days with all the kind of the challenges there, like getting those real-time price updates from your subs, or getting, or from your suppliers, or getting your subs to bid on jobs. Like, tracking that information and having that system is going to drastically help you, and improve your sales, processes to make sure that you're winning the most profitable jobs and the jobs that you want to be winning. And then when you need to, kind of shake the tree, you've got all your leads, you got your pipeline, it's all organized so that you can then kind of go and try to pull in some more deals when you need them. I'd say so moving on to the project management though, once you've won a job, it's so important that you keep all of the documentation, every single, customer order that they've signed, like having that signed contract in there, having any change orders that need to be issued, just keeping track of your costs, doing the job costing along the way, and then again, like we talked about earlier, kind of having, all of your guys kind of up, reporting on what did they complete, uploading photos. Like we told our guys, like, if you want to get paid for today, you do not walk off that job site without submitting photos. I just, at the end of the day, if we needed a way to kind of have visuals and put our eyes on the job site and on the work, even if it wasn't completed, that's fine. But we needed to basically have a record of exactly what was done that day. And that, again, gave us an opportunity if we needed to, check in with the customer, say, hey, here's where we're at. How does that look? I would much rather know that, in the middle of the work instead of waiting till the very end for the customer to give us a bunch of feedback. And so keeping track of that, again, having your task, your scheduling, know what you need to do and when you're going to do it, helping, your guys, kind of plan out their day. Like, if they got multiple jobs they need to get to, they need to know which order and what needs to be done first. What are their priorities? Having just kind of all of the communications for the customer. We have what we call the customer portal and the vendor portal, where again, it's a way for the customer or the vendor to kind of check in, having that transparency about where we're at with the schedule or where we're at financially, what do we need to, make any, selections or change orders? Do we need to pay any of our invoices? Have we paid the deposit? Like having all of that information available, and giving that transparency to your customers as well as to your crews. I mean, if your guys, they need to know what they're going to work on in the next day or the following day, or if you're using subcontractors, they have to potentially plan ahead if they're working for multiple companies. And so, organizing that, I think, is just a huge, a huge benefit here. And then lastly, I'd say, on the, kind of from a financial tracking standpoint, again, like just keeping all of this organized, having that connection, with your field guys, your salespeople, your project managers, and your back office is huge. Like at the GC I ran, like when I stepped in, we literally had over $800,000 of AR. And instead of collecting our accounts receivable for the money that we had already earned, we went and we kept taking out loans from the bank. And like I could not understand. But the problem was that, again, we might have completed a project, and the project manager told, the accounting, or the office, hey, go ahead and send that invoice to the customers. So, almost always they sent it, but there was no follow up. They didn't realize that, the accounting wasn't following up. They thought the project manager was following up. Project manager didn't realize that they hadn't already been paid, so they weren't following up. And like, literally we got into this situation where like we weren't collecting our receivables, and so like having that transparency and keeping track of what are you owed on every single job, what's been paid, what is receivable, and what's left to invoice. It's a tremendous benefit to help you financially, run your job. I mean, from a cash flow perspective, you have to make sure you're collecting along the way. Don't wait till the end of the job. Collect a deposit up front. Collect, some sort of, progress payment in the middle. Have a final invoice at the end. But like, from a cash flow, your goal is to collect as fast as possible and pay as slow as possible, and that's going to improve your cash flow on each individual job. And so, having that organized and having that transparency with your field guys in your back office accounting without having to give everyone access to your accounting system, it's just huge. I mean, we were now able to get everyone on the same page, and we, went and collected those, those payments that we needed. And, anytime a customer didn't make a deposit, that they didn't pay their deposit, we didn't start work. If they didn't pay a progress invoice, we stopped work. You can't just keep going and keep running the job if you're not getting paid. And so, I think just having that all organized, one place is a huge benefit. And I'm sure as Karalynn has a lot of experience, and y'all, really help kind of, with collections and lien waivers and all that, like having it all there and being able to track it back is just a, tremendous asset for any company. So what's a successful integration look like? So, and I think this is kind of referring to, how do we implement software, right? Like, and we've kind of talked about a little of these things, but like, I really tried to boil it down to, what does it take to successfully implement any piece of software? And it starts with, identifying the processes that need improvements, identifying like where are your pain points, where are your bottlenecks, like what problem are you trying to solve? So that when you figured that out, then you can go and you can start researching for possible solutions. Just, if you're out kind of looking for things and you don't know what you're looking for, then how will you know if you found it? So like, it takes kind of some upfront work to figure that out. And then you can start looking at a bunch of different options, and then again, like we talked about earlier, involve all the key players, all those, constituents, all those, stakeholders that are going to need to have buy-in to this, who either need to approve the purchase or will be an end user of the purchase. Like, I'm just a big fan of get everyone together, get them on the same page about what you're looking at, show them a couple options, and that's going to help you when you do purchase it. You're going to already have some familiarity, you're going to have that buy-in. And then I would say dedicating time to learning and setting up the software. If you buy some software or buy some technology and you don't ever stop to implement it, well, then what was the point? You have to make sure that you've set aside some time, whether it's, that next day you're going to dedicate a few hours, or, and every day for, for a week, for 2 weeks, whether you're going to do it all in one day or you want to spread it out, whatever it may be, just make sure that you've blocked out some time to learn the software and to get it set up. And it doesn't have to be a huge, time commitment, but like you need to just set aside some time and have that, kind of mental mindset that we want to implement this. And then once you've got it all set up, again, schedule time to train your staff. A lot of software companies like ours will provide all of that training. We can do it all via Zoom. You can come into our office, however you want to do it. Just again, setting aside time to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the software. Otherwise, again, you might just be spinning your wheels and wasting time, and then I would say definitely tapping into the support staff, the resources. I mean, with us and with a lot of companies, I mean, there's help desk online, there's help videos, there's, discussion groups and forums, and, the ability to kind of, chat with the support teams. Like they are the most knowledgeable people. And so you want to tap into them and strategize, have them, ask them to review your setup, ask them to give you some tips, some best practices. Like, these people have usually seen, hundreds if not thousands of implementations of the software, and can, they're just a whole plethora of knowledge that you can tap into. But sometimes you just got to kind of have that relationship built and reach out to really utilize that. And I'd say once you've kind of got, everything set up, you've got, your people in there, using it, it's also looking at the integrations. I'm a big fan of, you don't necessarily want to have any software kind of just out on its own little island where you've got kind of a bunch of different things that, you're having to do, duplicate entry to all these different systems. Like connecting the systems, like having one ecosystem of connected applications, in my opinion, is the way to implement technology these days. It's so important that, you can have them connected. And so kind of whatever that starting point is and whatever that ending point, usually your accounting system, there's a clear kind of path for that information to flow through. And so, figuring out what data needs to be, migrated over, whether we're going to run an export from here and we're going to import it, or we're going to have some sort of a sync process, like, flushing out what are the different pieces that you want to connect, and then strategizing, with the company and kind of looking at kind of those integration options. That a lot of times you don't have to build something custom or something specific. There's ways like through like what's called Zapier, like a middleware application where you can connect thousands of applications together, where, a trigger can happen over here and an action can happen after that. Like looking at those opportunities is going to further streamline the software, and it's going to help it become even more ingrained in the company and in all of your processes, so that it's going to have a much stronger kind of foundation built there for your continued use and adoption. And then lastly, I mean, committing to this transition. Again, like you've got to make the decision that we're going to do this. You've got to go all in. Sometimes kind of, people ask for like a trial or this and that, and they just want to kind of play with it. Well, if you really want to get the benefit and really, implement a solution, have that mindset, make that commitment. If you're going to buy something, then commit to doing it, commit to implementing and get it set up. Because if you don't do that, and if you don't kind of, go all in on it, then again, it'll fizzle over time. And so you want to sort of make those changes and just, kind of commit to those, whether it's processes, whether it's, kind of the people and how they're going to kind of, who's going to use what, who's going to do what, what's the interaction with your customers, your subs, like thinking through all that and just committing to it is I'd say kind of the last most important piece there.
And then, it helps your external partners, access their information. So, another big part of these platforms is the legal documents like contracts and all of that. And so, like, we can draft a contract specifically for your business and specifically for your state that you can just plug in and that they sign off electronically and it's there forever, right? I still think it's a kind of a good idea to go over the key points, so the client understands what they are. And also the other way, if you're signing somebody else's contract and you have it there in your software, you can send it to your legal partner to review, so you understand what you're signing and the risk involved.
Yep.
And, a great way to CYA, cover your ass on the legal end, right? And another thing too, it has all of, you can implement a system of when an invoice gets so many days old, it contacts your legal partner, they start the collection phone calls and invoices. You can have it completely streamlined. And the main thing about, we were talking about cash flow earlier, is having a consistent collection process, right? Especially in the construction industry and especially on the commercial side. If you are, not on top of your lien rights and not on top of, you will get to move to the bottom of the pile. I mean, that's just a matter of fact. The squeaky wheel gets paid first. And once they know that you're the squeaky wheel, you'll get paid over the other guys that don't follow their process. I see it happen all the time. And this really streamlines that process. Instead of me having to print out your open invoice report and go through it and tell you which ones to send me, you could just, give me access. I can go and look and I say, hey, I need this information, or it's all right there. So I don't even have to ask you anything. So it's just hugely important for your cash flow, for the contract part of it, which, we need to have copies of all of that and have, the important part of a contract is that everybody understands what they're signing, to manage expectations. And this really helps do that, because if we can manage expectations, it's it's a lot less likely that we'll get into dispute later on. And especially since, if there's any ever question, they can go to the portal and they can see the contract that they signed, and all of the things are already in there.
Yep. So why would a GC or an owner hire someone who uses trade technology over someone who kind of does the work manually? I mean, great question. I'd say from a professional standpoint, you're by leveraging technology, you're going to basically come across as so much more professional, more organized. All of your documentation, every single, whether it's a bid you're submitting or proposal or whatever is well branded, it's well organized. You've got the detail, that's required, by the owner, by the GC. They want to know that you are organized there and that you have all of that information together. It's really going to be a huge selling point, for them to know that here's how we're going to communicate. Here's kind of the details that you're going to need. I'd say that's probably just a huge huge thing, just kind of having that professional, well branded, perspective, that kind of that persona that you're putting out there is you're not just a guy in a truck. You're a business. You're in the business of doing construction work, and just kind of having yourself branded at all times. And it's more too than just your documents. I mean, it's your uniforms, it's your truck that you show up in, it's just the professional behavior. Like, that is going to lead to your customers becoming much more confident, and comfortable working with you, because they know that you're going to show up on time. You're going to do the work that you said you're going to do. You're not going to have kind of any issues, hopefully, on the job site. You got to kind of show that professional front right up front. From yeah, there.
No, and no, absolutely. And I know that, working with GCs and owners all the time, the more professional you can be, the better, right? And it also leads to a source of referrals. You do a great job. You're easy to work with. They could contact you easily. You resolve their issues, and you have proof of all that. And that just helps grow your business from the inside too. I mean, referrals can be a great source of business, and it's nothing that you have to pay extra for, right? It's not a Google ad or anything like that. But treating your customers with care, and this really gives you a great way to do that. And you look professional. And I know, on the commercial side too, these GCs are looking, hey, did the guy actually read the contract? Does he have a good track of his documents? Is there a place where, and sometimes you have to work with their platform. And so if you show them that you're already in a platform, they know that you're familiar with technology, and you're way more professional.
Yep. From a communication standpoint too. I mean, I think that being responsive to your customers, to the homeowner, to the building owner, to the GC, whoever your customer is that you're working for, basically you need to be as responsive as possible and show them, that you're going to be there along the way. So many times, and I'm sure we've all had this experience where, we have a contractor out to our house, and want them to kind of look at a project and give us a bid, and then you never hear back from them. There's no follow-up. You didn't get any sort of detail. You're having to now follow back up with them. Like, if you want to win someone's business, you need to be very responsive, and you need to focus on, essentially making sure that you're addressing all of their needs. If there's things that they've asked for that you haven't sent them, then, again, you're kind of just going to be sitting there in limbo, and that gives them an opportunity to go and start talking to other people. Keeping all of those communications in one place, being able to have those discussions, making sure that you're, kind of keeping track of everything, as well as, I want to know that you've got a good system with your guys. Did they know where to go? Did they know the project scope and requirements and what they need to do and when and where to be? It's just really helpful, to kind of have those communication channels set up and those systems to really improve that. And so I talked a little bit about this kind of, with having those client portals. I mean, a way for them to self-service, kind of give them that transparency so that they can see the status of any project. They can, they can ask questions. They can, if they see issues, they can upload a photo. They can kind of get that, kind of have that communication, that back and forth. There's nothing more frustrating than, kind of trying to call someone. You can't get a hold of them. They're not responding. Like, the information's not available to you. You're wondering where everyone's at. Like, having those, kind of those portals set up where they can self-service, where they can have access, to the information that you share, but again, for them to go, maybe they just need to review, kind of where they're at with, with their contractor, or kind of what, change orders have been agreed to, what hadn't been agreed to, like, where they're at with the billing and, the invoicing and all that. Like, having that one place for people to access is huge.
I know that was for us too. Like, and that was great timing. Shortly before COVID, we had a case management software, but all of our cases were paper, right? And then we'd make a copy of that paper and put it in our electronic, like the cloud, and then we'd still have our paper. And so we transferred to Clio, which is a database that we use with our clients, and now everything's electronic. I don't have any binders anymore, which has been great because they can get on there, upload their documents. They can see documents that have gone out in their cases. They can see the status of their case. They can see their bills. Any questions, they already have the answers to. I mean, obviously they can still call us, but it's really made a difference in allowing us to do more work, to be more flexible,
Yeah.
and to have all those communications in one place is huge. It's such a huge benefit. Excuse me. And
Yeah.
I of all people was really, not on board with doing it for the very same reasons that you had said. I'm going to lose my stuff. I don't know where's my paper, and I really have to say it's really helped us grow as a company and just made life more efficient. And I can still print out stuff if I want to, because
Sure.
I'm still very much paper. That's how I think, but it's all there, and we haven't lost anything. It's really been a great transition.
I'd say kind of the last point too. I mean, if you come in and you've got a well organized, kind of proposal, or, kind of just you've detailed out what is going to go into a job. It's often kind of can sort of not be thought about or overlooked, because like that's so huge when someone is, going to purchase your services. They want to know that you have covered all of your bases, that you have included all of the things that need to go into this. There's nothing worse than getting into getting into a job, and then, a customer says, well, what about this other thing? And you're like, well, that wasn't included. And they're like, well, but, you didn't document it, or maybe it was, or we talked about it in the back and forth. Like, that's a frustrating situation. And so having very clear, clearly defined scope of works and budgets, and like when you submit that, that detail, to the owner, they're going to have so much more confidence, going with you and knowing that this is how you're going to address, any situations. Because I mean, there will be situations that come up, but if you're organized, you've got all your contract terms, conditions, everything in place to give them that, kind of that comfort that if something does come up, this is how we're going to handle it. It's huge. And then having all of that, again, Karalynn talked about, like having that digital, making that available to them and, to your team. It's just huge to be able to kind of track all of that in one place, because if you do get into a sticky situation later, well, you've got the details to back up exactly what happened, what was done, and so that can, again, it can be very beneficial to both parties, you and, the other party. And so, whatever it is, that's going to give them, the confidence that, by working with you, you aren't going to, kind of get into these, just situations where there's no documentation. We have no idea what happened. It's a bunch of finger pointing. It's very hard to defend against that as well. And so, just again, having that centralized location with, very crystal, clear processes, and kind of set ways to manage jobs, document what's happening, what's been paid. I think it's going to bring a lot of confidence, when you're going out to bid for jobs as well.
And what being clear is kind. Setting expectations is hugely important. One of the biggest complaints I hear when I have, somebody wants to sue a contractor is that they never responded. They didn't keep me up to date. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what the schedule was. It just didn't show up. And if they could log in and see their own portal, here's, we're off schedule these days. This is when we're expected to finish, and just live updates.
Yep.
That's going to resolve so many disputes before they even start, right? And a place to document that if the client did have an issue, this is how we resolved it. And it's all in there in paper, and that they signed off on it. And it's just a great way to keep your business protected. And hopefully, you won't, besides drafting your contract, hopefully you won't need a lawyer, right? That's my hope, is I draft a clear enough contract, you use the system, and that everything's clear, and then you don't end up getting sued, because that's when it gets expensive, time consuming, and just a general pain in the ass. Much rather be working on your projects than being in a courtroom, I promise you.
Yep.
And having this kind of stuff set up is essential, because you have no idea how much time it takes if you're in a lawsuit, and how much money it will take. And the best you could ever hope for is to break even. That's if you're suing. If you're being sued, it'll truly help mitigate your damages. So I think it's a great idea all around.
Awesome. Let's see. So I think, yeah, we got one more section here. I mean, so how do you choose the right technology for you? I think there's two things to look at. There's both the technology, the software, and then there's also the company. So, from the software standpoint, again, like, does it meet your needs? Is this, going to directly address the pain points that you're having? Is it adaptable to you? Can you customize it, or is it, one size, fits all? Use it this way or the highway. I think it's so important to have software that, you can customize for your business to make sure that you can adapt and, kind of, work with it to get it set up, instead of it, being, you have to just completely throw out everything you've done and, kind of change to use it their way. Like, a lot of software these days is very customizable. So making sure of that. Again, does it integrate with other systems? So important that you don't just kind of buy something that's going to be off on its own silo. You want software that's integrated or has the ability to integrate, and communicate with other systems. Don't want to get too technical, but, anytime you see API, that usually means they're very integration friendly. API stands for an application programming interface, and that allows other companies and other softwares, to basically connect and talk to your software, that you're going to implement. And so, I think that's really important. But also, is it easy to use? Is it easy to understand? Like, does it make sense? Or is this something that just totally doesn't make sense? You want to make sure that things, seem, kind of intuitive, that you like the interface, that you can feel comfortable kind of learning and using it. Is it fast? Is it responsive? There is nothing worse than using software that you're sitting there and every click you got to wait for the little spinning wheel, or whatever it may be. Like, there's nothing more frustrating to have slow, software that, again, maybe it's even, kind of slowing down, your processes, because, people are sitting there waiting. Like, you definitely never want that to happen. Is it mobile friendly? Again, everything this day and age, it needs to be able to work on any size device. And so, kind of taking that into account. And obviously, cloud hosted, I mean, it's the way to go. The on-premise software really is kind of, on its way out. It's just too hard to support, with a bunch of different versions and having to download updates and, having VPNs. I mean, the way of the future is definitely the cloud software, where you can access it from any device. So from a software standpoint, I'd say those are the important things. From a company standpoint, again, is there tech support? Are you going to have, a dedicated resource or someone who's going to work with you or be there to help you implement it, to answer questions? Are there training resources online? Do they have a help desk? Do they have, kind of video libraries, things that, kind of, again, you need to be able to look up answers and kind of learn how the software works. And so making sure that those resources are there is hugely important. Does the staff have industry knowledge? Like, from in JobTread, like, we all, this is, a lot of us work together, and this is our second software company. But after we sold our first one, we all ended up just randomly kind of going out and getting involved in construction, and then sort of it made sense for us to come back together again, because we had experience, as builders, as remodelers, as home flippers, as, running GCs, like, doing trades. Like, that's so important to help us be able to build out, the software, because we understand and we're able to use it. And we also dog food it, by the way, meaning we use it internally as well. And so, it's just so important to make sure that your partners, at the company, actually understand what you do, and that they're not, kind of just, sometimes, companies may outsource, and just kind of say, here, build it this way. But there's a very disconnection, big disconnection between the actual developers and the end users. I think that's a huge thing to look for. Is it affordable now and in the long run? I mean, you got to make sure that as you scale and as you grow your business, the software is going to, kind of, affordably grow with you. I'm not a huge fan of, some software there, it's tied directly to your revenue, things like that. I think that, obviously, as you grow, your price may increase a little bit, but it should be nominal. It shouldn't be, these huge jumps where, they can come in and kind of just flip a switch and now you owe 2 or 3 or 4 times as much. Obviously that's going to put you into a bind. And so really thinking through the revenue, or I guess the pricing model, is very important. Again, are you going to get a return on your investment? Is this something that, is going to make sense to partner with this company to make this purchase? Do they value your feedback? Like, for us, we meticulously track every single feature request, every piece of feedback that we get from our customers, and that's how we can continually improve the product. That's how we prioritize our development. Like, we're very actively developing JobTread, And so by listening to our customers, that helps us make sure that we keep developing and keep making the enhancements that are going to make the biggest benefit and impact on, on our customers. And so, you definitely don't want something that doesn't seem like it's kind of continuing to evolve and improve over time, because, again, there might not be a big focus on making those updates.
And don't forget that sometimes when you buy the platforms, that they have templates and they're not specifically for your business or your state. So I think it's really worth time to contact an attorney to have them look over the documents. I'm not saying that they won't work, but it's probably a good idea. And if you have a contract you like, use that instead.
Yeah.
Have it uploaded. It's definitely to make sure that you're protected. And so have an attorney review it, or have one drafted. We do it on a flat fee for all 50 states, really to make sure, especially if you're in residential work, every state requires some state specific language that needs to be in your contract. And you want to make sure you spell out the warranties, if they're one included or not, and the maintenance that the homeowner or the client has to keep up with in order to validate a warranty claim. All of these things should really be in either your terms or conditions or a full contract. And honestly, guys, there's no project that's too small for something in writing, just because usually the smaller ones, you don't have something in writing, will turn into a big legal issue, and then everybody's in trouble. So something's better than nothing, but once you get to a point where you can spend a little money in improving, it's well worth the investment. And then the other thing too is that these documents are living and breathing things. So as you go through a situation that you don't want to experience again, let's add language to the contract to make sure that that's not going to happen again. Like all the time I get, the dog gets out. I don't want to be responsible for the dog getting out. I said, okay, let's put that in the contract. I mean, I want to put a sign up front to advertise. Okay, let's put that in the contract. All of those little things to help your business run better can definitely be part of your contract. And we can help you with ideas and terms and conditions that are very much plain English so your customers can understand.
Absolutely. I see we did have one question over here that maybe we ought to address. So Jack had asked, so how do you convince your subcontractors to join, understand, and buy into technology platforms when they don't have the resources or the time needed to contribute and collaborate effectively within the new software? I definitely totally get it. When we first rolled out JobTread at the GC, the first thing I did was I gathered all the subs together, and we had monthly, kind of early morning monthly meetings that we did. And so, again, before we even implemented, I had, talked to them about, hey, what are you guys' biggest frustrations, with managing the jobs? What's happening that, that we could improve. And so they're like, well, we show up and we don't have the plans. We don't know what to do. We're trying to contact the PM and he's not replying. We don't know exactly what order of things, like. And so, we took that in, to consideration. Then once we had a solution, we came back and we said, hey, here's what we got. Again, we're sitting down and saying, look, if you guys are willing to use this, it's going to help us grow the business so that we can sell more jobs. We can bring more work to you all. We can keep you all busier. And so we help them understand how, by them, adopting the technology and the software, that helped the business to be more successful and grow, which in turn gave them more work and, paid them more. And so, I think kind of, from that perspective, it's really important to, kind of involve them and basically help them understand the why you're implementing this and why you're doing it. But at the end of the day too, we also had to implement some policies where it's like, like I said earlier, like, if you want to get paid, every single bill that you submit to us, it has to have, that purchase order or that work order number. Like we need to have that, or again, we can't pay you. And again, if you want to get paid, you need to submit your photos for the day. You have to submit your daily logs. Like it's just our process. And, again, a couple times, we had a few people who sort of struggled with it a little bit, but then finally, they did get it. They understood the value and why we were asking for that. And it only takes telling somebody once that you're not going to pay them. They certainly will adopt it after that. But again, it's a just helping people understand why you're doing it and collaborating with them, sitting down with them. I took my biggest kind of the person who was kind of the most technology adverse, just did not want to change, refused, said no. I sat down with him, understood his processes, his pain, and then I came back with the solution, hands on, kind of let's walk through it. He ended up becoming my biggest champion. And he got frustrated with other people when they didn't input the schedule, when they didn't do something right. And so again, like, you can turn anybody, who's kind of your biggest naysayer into your biggest champion by just sitting down with them and having that, giving that little bit extra attention to really try to convert them and evangelize them into an active user who's excited about it and understands the why and is willing to help promote it and get others to use it too.
Absolutely. Okay, so that was that first question, and we had another one just pop up in the chat. Oh, well, he was just saying thank you. So we are opening the floor now for questions. So you can either pop them into the chat or you can unmute yourself and feel free to ask away. We'll kind of give a little bit of time towards that.
I was going to ask you, Eric, you said something like, what does a demo normally entail? Like if you wanted to try something like that, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, so like what we do is, again, if you go to jobtread.com, we've got a bunch of videos, a lot of content on there, but I'm just a huge fan of like let's spend a little bit of time up front, where if you wanted to schedule a demo, essentially what you'll get is a full kind of 45 minutes to an hour with a dedicated expert who understands the software very well, and so we'll essentially walk you through how this could work for your business. And so again, you kind of tell us what your needs are. We try to help kind of facilitate some of that conversation, but if anyone's interested in learning more about JobTread, if you just go to our website and hit schedule a demo, you can see kind of all of our availability, and we got a couple people on our team who, we're always happy to kind of, walk you through the product. We're not going to just show you some slides and, kind of show you some, some marketing. We're going to show you the actual application, in production so that you can really get a good feel for how it would work, ask any questions up front, make sure it's a good fit, and so that's been a way that, yeah, it takes a little bit more time up front to do that, but we'd rather kind of be as upfront about, hey, this is how it works, this is how the product would function for your company, and that gives people that opportunity to sort of ask questions and learn a little bit more before they decide to sign up.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right, going once, going twice.
You can always email us, or if you think of questions later on, we're always around.
Absolutely. Well, then in that case, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. As Karalynn mentioned earlier, we will have this recorded and sent out a little bit later in a follow-up email. So thank you guys for joining us, and stay tuned for all of our other events that we have going on between JobTread and the Cromeens Law Firm. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.